Prologue. In the sky between continents, where time dissolves between time zones and the soul seems suspended between worlds, there lived a woman who loved with one wing as a pilot and the other as a mother. Her name was Élodie Moreau, a name spoken with respect in aviation, but spoken with fear, longing or silent admiration in the lives of those she touched without ever remaining fully. She was an officer, a wife, a lover, a traveler. She was a puzzle of identities, carefully constructed, from risky pieces and fragments of hidden truths. In every country, in every love, she left a trace. Sometimes, the trace was a smile in a photograph, sometimes it was a child, a daughter born from a moment of passion and abandoned in the arms of a loving father.Seven daughters.Seven worlds.Seven continents of the heart. This story is not an ordinary one, not it begins with a once upon a time, and does not end with they lived happily ever after. Rather, it is a diary written in silence, on the margins of aeronautical charts, in hidden calendars, in unsent letters and flights that never appeared in official records. It is a confession torn from a double, sometimes triple life, in which lying was the only form of protection. On the day she told her story, Élodie did not ask for forgiveness. She did not defend herself. She looked into the camera, recorded her voice and spoke the truth, raw, deep, human. For the first time, she wasn't the impeccable pilot, the iron woman, the loyal wife, or the absent mother. She was her, a woman who lived defying the rules of gravity, not just of flight, but of the heart. This is the Great Confession. Not to judge, not to excuse, but to understand how far a woman can fly when she's not allowed to land anywhere. Chapter 1. The Interview. It was a quiet July morning, and Paris, with its warm lights and the scent of jasmine from the gardens on the banks of the Seine, seemed to sigh under its own memory. In a chic apartment in the 7th arrondissement, en rue de l'Université, a 79-year-old woman was meticulously smoothing her sky-blue linen dress, watching the world go by without knowing anything about her. Her name was Élodie Moreau, a name that had once appeared on the covers of aviation magazines, in official speeches and in image-controlled interviews. Known as the first female flight captain on Airbus A380 aircraft for Air France, Élodie had been the symbol of elegance in uniform, of technical perfection and of French refinement in the international skies in the 80s and 90s, but no one knew the truth. Not the deep, dirty, immoral and sublime one at the same time. About 10 minutes past 5, the doorbell rang delicately in the hallway, between a photograph of a young woman in the cockpit and a stone statuette from A. Flight to Nairobi. A young shadow appeared, carrying a backpack and a nervous smile. Bonjour, Madame Moreau, I'm Camille Laurent, from Le Figaro magazine. Thank you for inviting me. Come in, Camille. You should know that I didn't call you for a story, I called you for a will, a living one. Camille, in her 30s, a promising but still uncertain journalist, raised an eyebrow. It wasn't the first time an elderly personality had wanted to tell her about her life, but something in Élodie's voice seemed different. Authoritarian, but full of mystery. The living room she invited her to was an oasis of memories. Above the fireplace, an old Jaeger LeCoultre clock ticked slowly on the round cherrywood table, a tray of mint tea and lavender cookies. Everything smelled calm, but there was something disturbing about Élodie's gaze. Camille, did you know that I have 7 daughters?Seven. No, I just knew that. You never talked about children. Of course. Because each one has a different father. And none of them were raised with me. They were all born in different parts of the world. And none of them knew about the others, until a few years ago. Camille was left with her pen suspended in the air. I'm sorry, I don't understand. No, you can't understand. The world won't understand either. I was a goddess of the air with a soul of sin. And I want to tell you my story, but write it down only after I can't read it anymore. The sound of the recorder starts recording is the only sound, apart from the wind rustling the leaves in the interior garden. Élodie sits down in her worn leather armchair, while Camille takes out a notebook and begins to note down details of the atmosphere. I was born in 1946, in Marseille. I was a child, good in appearance, but with a mind that never slept. At 17, I was already winning international martial arts tournaments. My father was a mechanic and my mother a seamstress. They always told me that I couldn't dream too high, so I took flight. Literally. Where did your passion for aviation come from? From an accident at 20. I saved a little girl from a bus that had fallen into a ravine. There was chaos, panic, but I knew what to do. Then, a pilot in the area told me, "You have pilot blood." It was like a revelation. From that day on, all I did was learn to fly. Élodie talks about her first years in aviation school, about how she was the only woman in a generation of 50 men. About how she faced them, surpassed them, taught many of them that respect does not come with gender, but with precision. At 30, I was a captain. At 32, I was at the forefront of transcontinental flights. But that's when my secret life also began. Camille slowly approaches. "You mean?" Yes, at 32, I married Colonel Armand Moreau. Handsome, elegant, a legend in the French army. We loved each other, but we didn't really know each other. I discovered that what I felt wasn't just desire. It was a hunger for life, for touch, for diversity. And once I flew to New York, Tokyo, Rome, Buenos Aires, each city became a new chapter of my desire. Élodie gets up and goes to a display case where she keeps 7 little boxes. She opens them one by one, showing a bracelet, a pacifier, a letter, a photo of a child. Each box is for one of my daughters. Each child was born out of love, Camille. Not out of sin. I loved every man who gave me a child. But I always knew that they shouldn't know each other. And Armand never knew. But how did you manage it? Because the sky makes you invisible. When you're an airline pilot and have 18-hour flights across the continent, no one asks what you do in your free time. I lived between heaven and earth. And in this intermediate space, I was free. Camille closes her eyes for a moment. She's overwhelmed. Story that defies convention, morality, but which is told with such lucidity and sincerity that it's impossible to condemn. Why now? Why are you telling me everything? Because I don't want to die with this secret. Because I want my daughters to know the truth. And because I was a woman who lived differently. Not perfectly, but fully. Camille looks at Élodie and no longer sees just an old woman. She sees a queen of heaven, a sinner in love with life, an imperfect mother, a mistress hidden in the flights. And she knows, from that moment, that what will be written in the pages of that interview will not be just an article. It will be an eternal confession.